DM2 Software's Vice President of Sales and Marketing. I would like to welcome everyone to today's Sage Fixed Assets webinar. Before I introduce today's presenter, I would like to go over a few housekeeping items. Because of the number of attendees we have on today's webinar, everyone's phones will stay on mute. If you have any questions during the webinar, please enter them into the question window that you see on the lower right of your screen. We'll try to answer everyone's questions at the end of the webinar. If we're unable to get to everyone's questions, we'll follow up with you individually after the webinar. Today's webinar is being recorded. As soon as the recording is available, we will post it along with the presentation slides on our website and our YouTube channel and send you an email to let you know when they're available to be downloaded. On that note, I would like to introduce today's presenter, Ratana Banze. She is a channel account executive with Sage Fixed Assets, and she's going to give us an overview of Sage Fixed Asset Solutions. On that note, go ahead, Ratana.
All right, Tom, thank you so much for that. And I'd like to go ahead and welcome everyone to our webcast today again for optimizing your fixed asset management. Today's webcast is just going to be a very quick overview of our products. However, we're just going to be demonstrating just the depreciation module. I do want to point out that we'll be going over the other two modules that our company does provide. If you have an interest in learning more about those other two modules, don't hesitate to reach out to Tom, and we can absolutely arrange a time where we could do a demonstration for you later on during the future. So I know we have just about an hour, so let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so since today we're taking a look at fixed assets, I just wanted to give you a quick overview of how we actually started off and what we're currently working with right now. And we've actually been around since 1982. We were once known as Best Software, as a few people may know. We were then acquired by Sage in 2000 along with Aberrant Analytics, and today we actually have over about 100,000 installed customer sites. So in addition to that, Sage has actually been chosen 3-to-1 over our competition, and we are used by the top 15 accounting firms such as Deloitte, Ernst & Young, PricewaterhouseCoopers. That's just to name a few companies that do utilize our product. Before actually getting into the demonstration, I just wanted to kind of elaborate on what a fixed asset is, since a lot of people may not know what it's actually defined as. And taking a look at the screen right here, fixed assets are actually items that are acquired by an organization for the use of its operation that's not going to be for resale. So taking a look at the screen, some examples that we've shown here are things like equipment, furniture, computers, and as you can see, regardless of what company that you're coming from or what industry you work on, your company is going to have fixed assets, and being able to manage and having a system in place to track these assets are very, very important. Some of you may ask the question, well, why should I care? And mainly sometimes it's because of the fact that you may not have the resources to track the assets efficiently. 3 reasons as to why you should care are actually listed right here for you. And the first one is that it's very important to have an accurate calculation for your books, because not knowing what you have can actually result to overpayment in property taxes and insurance. And most importantly, you want to make sure that you stay compliant with the tax rules and regulations so that you aren't going to be in trouble with the IRS come end of the year. Secondly, we have the value of your fixed assets are always going to decrease over time. And a good example that I always like to bring up is the fact that, if you purchased a brand new car, once you drive that vehicle off the lot, it depreciates almost immediately, and it's no longer going to be valued at what it once was. So it's important to be able to calculate these values for all of your assets that you actually have in your company. And then finally, different assets do require different methods of depreciation. So our software does provide you with a solution that has over 300,000 tax rules that are built into it. And this is something that an Excel worksheet cannot provide for you. And then as a result, this may cost you a lot of time, a lot of money to kind of figure things out at the end of the year if someone put in the wrong calculations or made a mistake with the Excel worksheet that you're currently using. So just to kind of piggyback right off of our last slide, we all know that the complexity continues to change over the last few years, and tax laws are constantly changing. And this slide right here just kind of reflects the changes that have happened over the years. So I'm actually showing the straight line method right here because here, before 1980, companies were actually using straight line depreciation methods as reflected here, and it was pretty straightforward, it was pretty simple. And then after that, some changes happened and the accelerated methods were introduced. So as you can see, there's a little curve there, and it's not as simple as the straight line method. But then, before 2001, to kind of help spur the economy, government allowed people to use bonus depreciation at 168 allowance, allowing them to depreciate their assets before it actually was depreciated. So now we really don't know what's actually going to happen next. And this line right here kind of symbolizes the unexpected changes that can come. And we know it's not this crazy yet. But the point of this slide is that unless you actually have someone whose job is to watch C-SPAN all day and to monitor these changes, Sage Fixed Assets is current with their tax law rules and regulations. So that way it allows you to have more time to focus on other aspects of your business, leaving the worry to us. There are absolutely benefits to having a program in place to track your assets. And if you ask me what those benefits are, I can tell you right off the bat that it's going to guarantee that you are going to be compliant. It's going to save you some time. And then last but not least, what a lot of companies love to hear is that it's absolutely going to save you some money. With regulatory compliance, our software will assure that you're going to be ready for your next audit because we stay compliant with the IRS, GAAP, GASB, 3435, Sarbanes-Oxley, and IFRS. So sometimes companies may choose the option of using spreadsheets, and even though spreadsheets may be more cost-effective at first, it's not the best tool for regulatory compliance. And some of the reasons are because you're not going to have that third-party oversight. It's not going to provide you with any tax updates, and most importantly, Excel sheets lack security. So anyone can open it up to make changes, and sometimes those changes aren't going to be warranted, and therefore, since there's no support for disaster recovery, you may be left in a sticky situation at the end of the year. What our software offers is the ability to have the compliance all in one location with the rules that are built in. We do give you security features, and we do have constant updates to make sure that you're always up to date in tax laws. And of course, time is absolutely essential in everyone, in every business that you're in. So there's nothing worse than, realizing that you spent so much time on a worksheet just to find out that it's all wrong. And some of the challenges that you will run into is if you're currently using an Excel sheet, you're going to have that manual entry process. You're going to have limited reporting, and you're going to have to post back to your GL manually. The manual work involved, if you have any projects that are going on, is also something that you need to be aware of as well. With our products, we have 3 modules that Sage Fixed Assets is currently providing to our customers. The first module is known as our planning module. And the planning module is essentially what is used for any companies that are currently tracking or they need a tool to kind of track projects that they're currently working on. So for instance, let's just say that, maybe your company wants to go out and have another building. So that building is going to be a project. The planning module allows for you to track how much spending that you've spent on this project. And then the great thing about this is that when the project is complete, as every single line item that goes into this building is complete, the planning module rolls over the assets that have been created from the project level to the depreciation module, which is something that we're going to be taking a look at for the demo today, which starts to calculate the depreciation for all of your assets. The very last module that we have is known as our tracking module, and it shares the same database as our depreciation module. So anything that you are running depreciation on, you want to make sure that it's still in service. So the tracking module allows you to go out at the end of the year, put a label on your assets, barcode them, and then you got to go out and find them, because a lot of times companies don't realize that sometimes assets disappear, they're broken, they're lost, they're stolen. Our tracking module is the module that's going to allow for you to keep track of these assets that no longer exist. So with that being said, saving money with ghost assets that don't exist is very, very important, because if you are unaware of what your company has, then you may be paying or overpaying on the taxes and insurance that come along with that. What we defined as ghost assets are assets that are currently in your books but are no longer being serviced. These are things that are disposed, misplaced, lost, stolen assets. And many companies don't realize that the amount of money that they lose on ghost assets every year do exist, essentially because if you think that you're tracking something and it's been gone a long time ago, you're still going to be paying those taxes and the overpayment on insurance, but you actually have to go out and do a physical inventory to make sure that those assets do exist. So with just a quick synopsis of what I just mentioned, with our 3 modules, the modules do allow for you to have access and visibility from the very beginning on the project level to the depreciation to the tracking at the end of the day. And just to take a very close look at ghost assets really quickly before we actually get into our demonstration and how it actually does affect your business, we've actually done some studies to determine what the average percentage of ghost assets are within a few organizations. And just based on the studies that we've done, the average percentage of ghost assets comes to about 15 to 30%. This means that if you've never done a physical inventory, your company is going to have around 15 to 30%, and 15 being a very conservative number. So now just take a look at that number right there, and let's just assume, so that way I could give you an idea on what the ROI is for a product. Let's just assume that you are an organization that has about 2,000 assets, with those assets averaging a cost of $1,000 each, which brings our total cost of fixed assets to $2 million. With that very conservative ghost asset rate of 15%, that brings you a total of $300,000 in ghost assets that you don't even know of. And this is the money that you are not being able to keep track of. So the overpayments on that alone for the first year comes to $53,340. What we do provide is an ROI calculator that we can actually send to you, so that way you could work this on your own. But really quickly, because we have 3 different modules that we provide, when 3 modules are purchased together, it's considered our complete pack. And as you can see here, the cost of our complete pack for a 1-user license does provide you a very, very good return on investment on your actual product here, because it's going to show you that your net first year saving comes to $45,783. So I just wanted to bring that up just to give you an idea of the items that we do provide and the modules that we have. As I mentioned earlier, we have planning, depreciation, tracking, and then we also have the reporting module. The reporting module is just a full-blown version of Crystal Reports. And what this allows you to do is, if you have any standard reports that you'd like to tweak or modify, then the report writer would be used to tweak and modify those reports. Or maybe if your company needs to add or create a brand new report, then the reporting module would also do that for you as well. So we do pride ourselves in the ability of providing a solution from very beginning, cradle to grave, and from a very beginning stages to the project level all the way to the physical inventory, the reporting. This slide just kind of helps illustrate some of the challenges that companies do face at different stages before an asset is created, which is something that our software is able to help maintain and assist with. With that being said, we're getting very close to our demo, but I do want to show you the different packages that we do provide for you. Due to the fact that we do have 3 modules that we offer. Again, if you want to go forward with 3 modules, it's considered a complete pack. You could buy 2 modules at a time, or you could buy just the depreciation module as well, just to let you know that we do have flexibility in how you do combine the packages. So with that being said, let me go ahead and pull up my depreciation and get over here to demonstrating the depreciation module for you. As you can see on the screen, this is our depreciation, and we're actually currently on version 2013.1 right now. The software is designed to be very flexible now. It's changed in the past where you had to click through many different items to get to where you want to get to. And now what we've done is we've kind of consolidated everything, so that way you only have to click on 4 tabs to get to where you want to get to. So I always like to start my demos off at the Systems Admin tab, only because this is essentially where you're going to be able to come in and determine how each company, each person, the type of history, the database, this is where you're going to be able to control everything that you see here. You have the ability to create as many companies as you'd like. There's not a limit to how many companies that you can create. And with 2013, what we did was we actually combined all of our entities into one. In the past, if you had a U.S. location and then you also had a Canadian location, you would have had to purchase our software twice to accommodate those needs. But now that with 2013, we've combined those entities, giving you the ability to come in here and just select which one it is that you'd like to open up, and therefore the tax rules and regulations would then populate according to which ones you select. So that is a new feature that's available on 2013.1. You have the ability to come in here and make edits, and right now we don't have a company open, so it's not opened up for us, but we're going to come back to this. You can delete a company, merge, copy a company, extract assets into a new company, and then the import and the export feature is fairly simple. A lot of times if you have the ability, oops, something just popped up here. If you have your information on a CSV file or an Excel sheet, then the import process is just being able to map out from the Excel sheet into the actual program. And once you actually create a field map, it's always going to be there, so you don't have to go back there and repeat yourself. On the right-hand side, we have the ability for you to control the security for each person. And this is something that an Excel sheet does not provide to you. Because here, let's just assume that you had an intern that you hired in the summertime. And this intern maybe is someone that you use to kind of, come in here and do data entry. You don't want to give her any information on your finances or your books. So you can absolutely come here and say, hey, she can make edits, she can only read, or maybe she has no capability at all. You come in here and you establish what those parameters are for this user. And the great thing is that this can be done at a user level and also at a company level as well. The type of history that you show is completely up to your company. And we're actually going to drill into this when we start creating an asset, but I do want to keep in mind that anything that you want to show is really depending on your company. It's completely up to you. And then here on the right-hand side, being able to manage your database, whether it's to add, find, open, backup, or restore, it's located for you right here, so that way it's very easy for you to come in here and determine what you want to do. So really quickly, let me go ahead and open up a company. And because we've combined everything, you get to select which one it is. I'm going to keep mine at the U.S. company. I'm going to click OK. And once we open up a company, the first thing that you're going to see is what we call our asset snapshot. And what this is it's just a quick glance of the information from the database that you pulled for that company. We provide you with 7 books. It's the tax book. It seems like my computer has to have a lot of upgrades, so I do apologize for all the things popping up. But we have the tax book, we have the internal book, state, AMT, ACE, and then we also have Customs 1 and Customs 2. These 2 books are customary books for your company. So if you have your own internal ways of kind of tracking things that you would like to use, these are the 2 books that you'd like to would go ahead and use. You could choose to hide these 2 books or any other books if you don't use them. It's completely up to you. Again, very flexible for your use. It tells you the active assets net value. In addition to that, we give you the acquired value and the count on active disposed, inactive transferred, and other. We have a little pie chart of your current property type. And then the bottom left-hand side, accountants love this feature because it tells them the last time depreciation was processed, the last period that was closed, asset purchased, disposed, and transferred. In addition to that, there's 4 charts that we give to you. First one is the placed in service by quarter, investment by remaining life, acquisition comparison, and then we have a depreciation comparison. So again, this is always going to populate when you have this, when you open up a company, but you can choose to not have it display on startup on the bottom left-hand side. So now that we actually have a company open, let's come back up here to edit a company, because we can now click on this. And when we click on edit company, this is where you're going to be able to come in and control how each book is going to calculate depreciation. The great thing about this is that, if your company was going through an acquisition and maybe your company changed names, because once you've acquired that other company, maybe you took a different name, you can make those changes right here and change the name. Identification numbers can change. The start date of your business can absolutely change as well. And then the locations, the transfers can be done by any of the fields that we provide for you here. It's not limiting you to just the location or an owner. You can transfer by any of the fields that we provide for you. If you'd like to round your tax report dollars to whole dollars, you have that option here as well. And if you would like to include bonus depreciation, that's also an option that you have as well. So taking a look at this, with the 7 books that we have for you, you can come in here and determine how each book processes. So here, if you want to keep the book open, you could just come in here and say yes or no, I want to keep it open. The title of the book for Customs 1 and Customs 2 can also be changed. The fiscal year end for each book can also be determined on how you'd like for it to be. If you'd like to emulate the book, any methods of depreciation that you'd like to default to, we provide you with over 50 different methods to choose from. And then if you'd like to enable begin fields, yes or no, that's also an option that you have. Short years, a lot of times, if you are going through an acquisition and once you've acquired a different company, maybe your fiscal year ends don't tie up. So this is where your short years are going to be able to compensate for that. Book overrides, you come in here, you determine the mid-quarters, any adjustments, reduced by ITC, and then of course contact information for whoever is in charge, so that way if any issues or questions do arise, they know who to reach out to, and a notes tab that helps keep track of everything that's ever happened to this particular company. And this is great because it's going to give people, it's going to keep people on the same page, and any notes that you want to log. Some examples that we have here are the property tax that's due, but in your situation you could log audit or any issues that you came into. So let's go ahead and cancel out, and let's just assume now that we had an import that was done and all of our information is now imported into the system. And here, all of the assets that you have are now going to be listed out. So you can scroll all the way down. In the very, very top in dark green, there are a total of 28 fields that we have for you. And the only 2 fields that you cannot change or modify will be the system's number and the status. These are going to be automatically defined for you. However, the remaining 26 fields here, these can be customized according to how your company would like to use it and the terminology that you'd like to use as well. So I'm going to show you how to customize the screen here in just a few seconds. But it's fairly easy. You no longer have to go to an IT person and say, hey, I need help to tweak this. You can do this all on your own. So over here, when we see on the left-hand side, you're going to know which asset has a note attached to it because there's a little notepad here. You're also going to know which asset has an image attached to it because of this paperclip here as well. You could rearrange everything. So if you want a class to come before the acquisition date, it's just a matter of dragging it over. So that way it's customized. If you wanted to alphabetize things, it's just double-clicking on this, and now it's going to be alphabetized for you. And then most importantly, if you want to change the terminologies for the 26 fields, let's just stay with class and say, you know what, my company doesn't use the term class. We use the term category or type. What you're going to do to change this is we're going to come over here to the left-hand side, and we're going to click on Customize a Field. And once you click on that, all of the fields that I've just addressed for you are going to be shown on the left-hand side. We're going to highlight the field that we'd like to change. In our case, it's going to be class. And then on the right-hand side, this is where you're going to be allowed to make those changes. So here it's saying you want to allow entry. Are you requiring it? Is it view only or hide? That's completely up to you. And the title can be changed. So let's just say that we want to use the term type. What type is this? It's not class. So we just went ahead and we changed that. The entry mask for each field is really going to vary depending on which one that you click on. For class, it's only allowing up to 2 characters. And I'm going to let you know why it's only allowing 2 characters in a few minutes when we actually click on the smart list. But just to show you, a custom field here can go up to 25 characters alphanumerical, and then a description field can go up to 80 characters alphanumerical. Any defaults that you would like to have automatically filled in can be included. Any messages you want to have populate. And then when you actually start drilling into the asset, if you want to rearrange the way the assets look, then you could actually do that right here as well. As you can see, we've actually activated the smart list, and that's a very good thing to do because once I click on the smart list, we're going to come here to class, and it's going to show us the smart list that we've already created for class. And the reason why class is only allowing 2 characters is because these 2 characters represent a certain description. And this is going to come in handy because sometimes, you might have people putting in the wrong description. As long as they tie it to the appropriate code, it's still going to be pulled up. Adding to the smart list is fairly easy. Let's just say that we were a trucking company, and TT symbolizes trucks. All we have to do is just click Add, and when we do that, we scroll all the way down, and you're going to be able to see that TT for trucks is now included. So let's go ahead and close this out, and I'm going to click OK, because now I do want to show you that class has now been changed to type, and that is actually how you're going to go about customizing the remaining 26 fields to kind of fit the terminology that your company uses. I'm going to come back and change this back to class now because that is something that I'm used to. And let's go ahead, and I do want to show you how to add an asset because this is going to be something that you may have to do on your own. Once you've gone through a major import, maybe you had a new employee that started the company, and you now have to assign a computer to this person. Just because it's one computer, you don't want to go through the import process. You're just going to go ahead and manually enter this. So on the upper left-hand side, we're going to click on Add an Asset. And when we click on Add an Asset, you'll see here, when we click on Add an Asset, you'll see here that there are 5 tabs that this asset has. Main, transactions, notes, images, and history, all pertaining to just this one particular asset. So let's just say that this is a computer, and we're going to put this computer into service. So now it's going to ask you for an asset ID. I'm just put some a number in because this is normally a number that is defined by your company. It's going to ask for a description. I'm going to say that this is a computer. But again, even if I misspell the word computer completely, as long as I come in here and tie it to the appropriate code, CO for computers, it's still going to pull up in reports. And that's where that smart list option does come in handy because this is where that manual process is going to be quick. And I went ahead and I created a smart list for all of my assets in my fields. So now it's just a matter of going through and assigning it to the appropriate fields that I would like to put them in. And we're not going to fill out all the fields just to save us time here in our demonstration. But assuming that this information is now filled out, it's going to ask you to come down here to your book information. There are going to be 5 things that are bolded and do require that you fill something out. So it's going to be property type, placed in service state, acquisition value, depreciation methods, and estimated life. If you do not fill this out, it's not going to calculate depreciation correctly. So for property type, we're going to go ahead and select which one you'd like to put this in. And we're going to go ahead and keep it at personal general. Placed in service date. And now it's asking, well, how much did you buy this for acquisition? I'll say that I purchased it for $2,000. And now the method of depreciation that you get to select. So let me come back here. And here we have everything from makers, straight line, declining balance, all the way to the very end where you have own depreciation calculation for these 2 books right here. And do not depreciate. In case your company would like to keep track of assets that you don't want to run depreciation on, it's absolutely something that you can do. The estimated life of a computer is 5 years. But just in case you did not know that, on the bottom right-hand side, what we provide for you is an IRS table. And the IRS table is an alphabetical listing of the most commonly used assets in which the IRS deems to be correct for estimated lives. So we're going to come to C for computers, and we're going to scroll down. And we're going to see here that the estimated life of the computer is 5 years. Huge time saver for any company that's currently thumbing through catalogs or Googling that information. It is made available for you right there. So now that we have our 5 fields filled out, I'm just going to tab down because once I do that, everything else is going to automatically populate according to how I had my books set up in the very beginning when we were at Edit Company, and we determined how each book was going to calculate depreciation. So let's go ahead and save this asset. And let's go ahead and assume that, I have another employee that's going to start next week, and I want to make sure that everything is in it correctly. What I'd like to show you is our template feature, because our template feature is going to come in handy for the accounting department, because sometimes they're really concerned about the financial numbers and they want to make sure that it's absolutely correct. And if you have the IT department placing things into service, they're not going to know anything about the books. So a good way for the accounting department to kind of assure themselves that the assets that are placed in service are always correct is you could just go ahead and save things as a template. So here we're going to save this computer template as a computer, because this is what we just did, and we're going to click OK. Because now the next employee that starts the company and the IT department is putting it into service, a computer that's assigned to them, all you would have to do is just come up here to the upper right-hand side and click Computer, because what that's going to do is it's going to automatically populate all of the book information, so they would not have to touch that. And then the general information is something that they would need to go in and change, because of course it's not going to have the same asset ID. It's not going to have the same class sometimes. It's not going to be in the same location. So the general information is something that we do require. We do require that you do have to change, but the book information is always going to be correct. And I do apologize that this thing keeps on popping up. So let's go ahead and save this asset. I want to show you that we also have the ability to replicate our asset, and you can replicate it up to 99 times. It's going to show up as its own individual line item in the group view. In addition to that, our software gives you the ability to partially dispose things as well. So let's just say that you were a construction company and you have heavy equipment. And sometimes with heavy equipment, parts of it can break off. But that doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to dispose of the entire thing. Our software does allow for you to do partial disposals. So with this example that we have, we're going to stick with this computer. Let's just say that this employee came in, had a rough morning, accidentally poured coffee all over his brand new monitor. So now we're just going to dispose of just that monitor. We're going to come here to dispose an asset. We're going to select the date that we're going to dispose it. And we're going to pick, is it a sale, an abandonment, taxable exchange, casualty, like kind, involuntary, or other. we'll say that this is a casualty because it was an accident. And is this a partial disposal, yes or no? We'll say yes. Now it's asking, well, how much are we disposing? Well, the monitor cost me $400, so I'm going to put $400 in and I'm going to type monitor. Any cash proceeds I have would go there. Non-cash proceeds are expenses of sale. And once I click calculate, it's now going to reflect a gains and loss of $400, which when I go here to OK, we're going to confirm that this is going to take place. And it takes me automatically to the next tab, which is our Transactions tab. The Transactions tab is going to come in handy for a lot of companies because they use this as an audit trail. As you can see, it tells them a partial disposal was done for a monitor on this date. It was a casualty for this amount. Well, let's go ahead and transfer the asset now, because let's just say that another location has a computer but doesn't have a working monitor. We're going to transfer the remaining parts of the monitor to that location. We're going to come here to transfer an asset, and it's telling us right now that it's currently located in headquarters. So again, we're going to select our date. The great thing about our program is that you can actually transfer this to another company that you don't currently have open. Because remember, we give you the ability to create as many companies as you'd like. But just to kind of show you the flow of the transaction, I'm going to keep it at our current company. And I'm going to say that it's now going to move to the sales department. And I'll click OK. Again, it takes us right over to the Transactions tab, telling us that a whole transfer has now been done. The partial disposal did not go anywhere. We just need to enlarge that. And again, this is always going to be tracked for you. Now, this is great for auditing purposes, but sometimes you need to be more descriptive because 7 or 9 months down the road, you know, when you're on vacation, you might not remember why you did something, and you don't ever want to get that phone call from your boss asking you, hey, well, why did we transfer it and why did we dispose of it? So our Notes tab allows you to put into your own words exactly what happened to include in the actual notes. With 2013.1, all of the notes that you put in are not permanent. You can actually come in and edit this note so that way you can update yourself on what's going on with this particular asset. Images is a feature that is also appreciated by a lot of our customers here because now you have the ability to scan in any invoices, any sales agreements, any pictures, anything that pertains to this asset, you can go ahead and scan it in and attach it. And this is great because you no longer have to file things in a file cabinet and then keep it in your office because, God forbid, if there was a flood or a fire, that information is gone, lost forever, and then you're going to run into some issues come audit time. The image feature allows for you to save everything right where it's at, and, you know, it also guarantees that you're not going to have to give away the last copy of something because sometimes when you do that, you might not get it back. If someone comes in and asks for a copy of that invoice, you can just come over here and print the details out, and it's always going to be backed up by your network, which is great because if you're working from home and you need access to any important documents, as long as you can VPN in, you can have access to that information. So History tab is, again, you have full control over what it is that you like to show. And with this right here, we just have it created so that way it keeps track of any asset that was created, it was partially disposed, some information changed, and then the asset was transferred to a different company. This, again, is something that you can always keep track of. So now that we've gone over the 5 main tabs, I'm going to come over here and come back to the Assets tab because I do want to show you that even though our software comes with a report writer, you do have the ability to kind of group and sort things before running reports on them. And a good example of this is, you know, sometimes companies, they want to run specific reports on locations that they have or different products that they have. Or maybe the CFO comes in and says, hey, give me a report on how many computers we have located in headquarters. What we allow for you to do is narrow down that selection so that way you can run reports on that specific category. So let's just assume that that CFO came in and says, hey, I want to know how many building equipment is located in headquarters. We're just going to go ahead and create a new group, and we're going to name it HQ Building Equipment. And we're going to click Add, because now that we've created a group, it's now going to allow for us to narrow down our search. All right, so here, these are the things that we allow for you to look at, and it can be very, very specific as to what it is that you want. The location is going to be headquarters, and then we're going to go ahead and say that class is going to be building equipment. Again, you can continue to narrow down the criteria to be very specific, but just to show you how this report looks, I'm going to go ahead and click on OK. And when we click Close, it's going to automatically save that group for us. So now we're going to come up here to the very top of the group feature, and we're going to click on that and find where our report is. So here is the group that we've just created. And just based on the database that we had and the search that we had to perform, these are all of the building equipment that was located in headquarters. So this is great for a lot of companies that want to run specific reports. It's also, we also have the ability for you to run depreciation on just this report specifically. Oh, excuse me, I can't talk today. So let's go ahead and say depreciation and depreciate. These are all of the groups that you have created in case you selected the wrong one, but we're going to keep ours at HQ Building Equipment. And here are the books that we provide for you. You don't have to run depreciation on all of your books. It depends on which one that you'd like to run it on. Calculation for depreciation is also up to you. How far off do you want to see this? On an annual basis, quarterly, monthly? Completely up to you. Let's just say that I want to see this towards the end of the month. I'm going to go ahead and run this report. And once I run this report, it's going to pull up the report for both, because I ran it on two books, the tax and the internal. Here's where you're going to be able to switch from tax and internal. Okay, so let's go ahead and enlarge this real quick. And this is how the depreciation expense report will look. When you scroll all the way down, the key codes that we have are available right there for you. All of our reports are also exportable. So if you wanted to send this off on the upper left-hand side, you can go ahead and click on the export button and then go ahead and format it to whichever format that you see here, the destination that you'd like to send it off to, and then you'd go ahead and send it off. Great thing about this is that, if you were the person in charge of running this report and you got promoted, the next person that comes in and takes over your position is going to be able to see right here that this came from the group HQ Building Equipment, with the class is BE and location is HQ. So they'll be able to run the exact same report. In addition to the depreciation expense report, we also have other reports as well. So I'm going to go ahead and click on the Reports tab. And I'm going to come to Reports. We have standard reports that are made available for you, and these are the ones that we do provide. Some of the standard reports can be tweaked or modified using the report writer. So if you wanted to include your company header or another field that you'd like to track, you can absolutely use the report writer to tweak that. And I also want you to note that the example of how the report looks is laid down here below, but this example right here does not come from your database. These are mock numbers that we just put in just to show you how the report would look. These are the standard reports that we have. If you need to see tax reports, these are the tax reports that we have that are ready to be filed as well. Okay. And then in addition to that, customizing your own reports for any reports that you need to have that we weren't able to provide for you, so you need to go ahead and create it on your own. Batch reporting comes in handy. Sometimes the accounting department may want to view specific reports on a monthly or weekly basis. So to kind of save time on not having to go in and click on every report individually, you could just come in here and create a batch. So all of the reports that are important to your specific division can now be created under a batch, and then you can run them all at the same time. Favorites, maybe this is something that you run on a daily basis, can also be saved under favorites and run at the same time as well. So those are the reports that we do provide for you. In addition to that, we have links. And we have depreciation links that will bounce back to your ERP and general ledger for you automatically. If you are Sage 100 clients, we have here Sage 100 Standard, ERP, Advanced, and Premium. So this is going to always post back to your depreciation to your GLs. In addition to that, we also have the ability with the ERP side, we have an APPO link that is also made available. And this is going to come in handy because sometimes, if you have a PO that you want to create, you've already paid for, you want to push it into depreciation to start calculations for, the APPO link will then create the asset on your ERP side and push that over to our system so that way we can start to calculate the depreciation. So that's the integration between our ERPs and our Sage Fixed Assets modules that we can post back to your depreciation for you, and then you can also create an asset from your ERP side to our system. Anything that needs to be more specific than that would require customization, and we would have to have a conversation with our PSG group if you need more specific items other than the ERP link, the APPO link and the depreciation link. Last but not least, we have a huge question mark right here for the Assistance Center, because as you can see, if you have any questions on maybe entering an asset, running depreciation, or running reports, we try to give you the answers to these questions right here for you. We also provide you with productivity tips. In addition to Fixed Assets 101, The user's guide is also made available for you right here. On the left-hand side, we have some resources from Sage and some industry resources. And then last but not least, if you need assistance with any questions that you're not able to find the answers to, you can reach us via live chat, email, or phone support that's going to be available from 8:30 to 5:30 Eastern Time. So I know that we have just about an hour. I wanted to leave us room for time for any questions that you may have. So what I'll do right now is I'll pass this right over to Tom to see if we have any questions.
Okay, thank you, Tom. Before we get into the Q&A, if you could bring that PowerPoint presentation back up.
Absolutely.
There we go. Just wanted to take the opportunity to plug next month's webinar. We are actually in the process of releasing our latest version of CardLink. It's the 4.50.2 release of CardLink, and it is chock full of new features that are really designed to help those of you who are working with multiple card networks manage the cards and transactions, and then there's some additional pricing features built in there that can make working with multiple networks that much easier. So I think that addresses some of the concerns people have had in the past when you're dealing with CFN, Pacific Pride, and the Voyager networks and trying to manage that all out of a CardLink product. As soon as this webinar is over, I'll be sending the invitation out for that so you can start registering. But that is going to be on October 19th at 11:30 Pacific Time, 1:30 Central Time. So we'll look forward to having you join us for that. And now we'll open it up for questions. Latana, I haven't seen any questions chatted in yet, so why don't we give everybody a minute? I know there's a lot of material to digest.
Sure.
So as I said, if you have any questions, please enter them into the question window that you see in about the lower right half of your screen there. And you can go ahead and advance it to the next slide if you would, Latana. I'm sure, like in most webinars, you know, as I said, we threw a lot of information at you. You're probably thinking about things, and as soon as the webinar is over, that's usually when questions come to mind. So if you do have any questions after this session is over, feel free to email them to sales@dm2.com, and we'll make sure that we follow up with everybody and get those questions answered. We still don't have any questions coming in as of yet, so we'll give it one more minute and we'll wrap things up there. Okay, I just want to remind everybody that this webinar has been recorded. Once the recording is available, we'll post it along with a copy of Latana's presentation on our website and then send you an email to let you know when they're available to be downloaded. As I said a second ago, if you think of any questions after the webinar or would like to find out more about Sage Fixed Assets, please feel free to email us at sales@dm2.com. And we still don't have any questions, so I think that means you did a really excellent job presenting the time. So I want to thank you again for joining us and doing such a nice job on giving everybody an overview of Sage Fixed Assets and the various components to it.
Absolutely.
All right, thank you. And then I'd like to thank everyone for attending today's Sage Fixed Assets webinar. And on that note, we'll close it off for today. Thanks again, Tom.
All right, thank you. You have a wonderful day.
Great, thank you.
Bye-bye.